I think all of us in our life have had some episode in which we tried to make a sale or have gone through a really tough job interview or even tried to get a date with a guy or girl that we liked. And we just know that beyond a shadow of a doubt that we killed it. We said everything right. We hit the proverbial home run, and yet we didn't succeed. And that's when it hits home. What we hear ourselves saying and what the person on the other end of the conversation is hearing are two totally different things. Today, we're going to hear from someone whose expertise is in how to communicate in a way that consumers are hearing the message you want them to hear and are, in turn, trusting their futures with you. Michael Maslansky is one of America's leading communication and research strategists. As the CEO of Luntz Maslansky Strategic Research, it is his job to advise corporate leaders, association heads, trial attorneys, elected officials, and other powerful people on what to say and how to say it. Those clients include Bank of America, Chase Card Services, UBS, Van Kampen Investments, and other leading companies in virtually every industry in America. His company's work has been featured on 60 Minutes, Frontline, and in many other major media outlets. I thank him for being here today to share his wisdom and to help us get a better perspective on what messaging resonates with investors in today's challenging economic climate. In these 24 seats, we will have real investors. This session will provide us with a rare opportunity to interact with these investors to better understand what they expect from us, our industry, and your companies. Please welcome Michael Maslansky and his guests.
Thanks, Kathy. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I was at the airport this morning and coming up from New York and sitting watching the CNN screen that was playing news from over the weekend, and there was a clip showing of President Obama's, one of his Sunday news shows, and he was talking about the Obama plan for getting a flu vaccine. And he said, I'm going to call my head of HHS, I'm going to call my head of the CDC, and they're going to advise me as to whether or not the Obama family should get a flu vaccine, and then I'm going to do what they tell me to do. Makes sense, I guess, if you have that kind of access. Then he said, and if they say that I should get a flu vaccine, then I'm going to get in line like everybody else and wait my turn. At which point, everybody in the sitting area with me started laughing hysterically. The idea of President Obama waiting in line with everybody else to get his flu vaccine just didn't ring quite true. And what happened in the conversation that ensued right after is that there was a clear sense that he had lost credibility with that line. Anything that he was trying to convey in his statement about getting a flu vaccine was lost in a misspoken line, an over-exaggeration, something that he didn't need to say and ended up backfiring. And we see over and over again in the communications that we have today that it's the subtle things. It's a turn of phrase. It's the right word or the wrong word. It's words said in the wrong order or the right order. It's the right tone or the wrong tone that can often be the difference between whether or not you have credibility or whether you're seen as making things up, whether you're successful or whether you're a failure. If you're following the healthcare debate today, you can see the impact on language and what's happening. Government takeover of healthcare, rationing of healthcare, even death panels. Huge exaggerations maybe in what's actually going on, but if you watch the news coverage, you can see that these simple phrases make a huge difference in the way the debate about healthcare reform plays out. And what we found is that what's true in politics is equally true in marketing. It's true in employee communications, it's true in investor relations. It's that words matter and language matters. And that there is both an art and a science to finding the most effective language to make your point, to get people to listen to you, and to be successful in what you're trying to achieve. Now, the stakes have really never been higher than they are today, because we live in what I call a post-trust era. We're in a time where people don't trust institutions. We don't trust the government. We don't trust companies. We certainly don't trust CEOs. We don't trust salespeople. In one group that I did recently, we asked, who do you trust? And a woman about 60 years old said, I trust no one. Not my family, not my friends. If I want something done, I do it myself, because who knows who's going to screw me next. And in that environment, it becomes exceedingly important to find language that can overcome this high level of skepticism, to engage your consumer, to get them to listen, because that's often the hardest part of any conversation. My firm, which is called Luntz, Maslansky Strategic Research, specializes in looking at how people interpret language. And as Kathy said, we've done thousands of focus groups all over the world to try and understand how people respond to different messages. What makes a message effective? What makes it credible? How do you find words and phrases that are going to work and eliminate the ones that hurt you? And what we found is that there are a lot of common elements to effective communication. That there are rules that you can follow to do a better job at communicating. But one of the cardinal rules that we follow or believe in is that the way people react to communication is largely emotional. That yes, you can give people a message and ask them what they think about it, and they can over-intellectualize it, and they can think about whether they like it or they don't like it, and what they like about it or what they don't like about it. But at the end of the day, most communication is processed emotionally. You're listening to me right now, and you might not know why, but you either like what I'm saying or you don't. Hopefully you do. But it's emotional, it's visceral, it's instantaneous. It's a reaction to the words and phrases that I use. And so we use a technology called instant response, which I'll explain to you a little more in a second, to try and get at the emotional responses to language, to try and understand, before people know why they respond a certain way, how they're responding. And a key element of that emotional response is engaging people with trust. That the communications around trust, the language of trust, has become a necessary condition to effective conversations and communication. So what I'm not going to do today is guarantee that you're going to walk out of this session with some great insights. The reason why I won't guarantee it is because in extensive work that we've done with Van Camp and Consulting on the language of variable annuities, we find that Americans, in fact, Japanese as well, and probably every place in between, don't believe in the word guarantee anymore. If I say I guarantee something to you, chances are your reaction's negative, because there are no guarantees in life. You may know it already. You may think that I can't possibly come up with an insight that's good enough to fulfill my guarantee. But chances are, if I had given you a dial and asked you to respond to a word like guarantee, you'd have a negative reaction. So I won't guarantee it. I will say that I think when you hear what these investors have to say, that you'll learn some things. You'll get a deeper insight into the mind of your customers, and hopefully leave here having some new ideas about how to communicate with them. I also won't tell you that I have a solution. Because again, in research that we did, in this case actually with UBS, we found that when you talk about solutions, particularly in the financial services context, the overwhelming response that people have is, this is my financial life we're talking about. I don't have a problem, so I don't want a solution. What I do want is a strategy. I want something that's going to help me over time, that's going to be ongoing. Solution sounds like a point in time. Solution sounds like I have a problem. Instead, I want a strategy.